Hello everyone, we are starting Module 2, so welcome to Module 2. In Module 1 we looked at the concept of culture, and this time we are kind of looking at it from a broader perspective, and we are looking at the American culture and the diverse groups of people in the United States. Again, the first module was the concept of culture and you as a cultural being, and this time the United States. And in a diverse society like the United States, you are going to find different groups of people that belong to different cultural groups, and these groups can be called microcultures, and the collection of microcultures is the macroculture or the American culture. One of the things that you may hear from people is that America doesn't have a culture. Of course this is not true. Of course there is an American culture, and couple of things that I want to tell you from the literature. These are not from your readings. These are based upon what I have studied in the past and what I have read. There are some metaphors to describe the United States culturally, and the early metaphor was a melting pot, and melting pot suggested that people of different backgrounds come to the United States and they become one. They become American, as people called it then. And the literal explanation of the metaphor was that you put different types of cheese in the pot, you melt them, and you get just one type of cheese. Later on, people did not like this because when you melt the cheese and when they become something else, that suggested a perspective of assimilation. In other words, it was more like a forced change on differences, and people didn't like it, of course, and assimilationist view is not something desirable. The next metaphor was a salad bowl, and this was more accepted, more favored, because a salad bowl suggests different ingredients come together and make a salad, but the ingredients do not lose their characteristics. You put lettuce in the salad, lettuce is lettuce. You put tomato in the salad, tomato is tomato. You put cucumber in the salad, cucumber is cucumber. But when you mix them up, you have a salad. American culture. Those ingredients are the microcultures. This is more accepted. There are still people out there who don't like this specific metaphor either, because in a salad you have more lettuce than tomato, for example. So some people do not like that aspect of the metaphor, but these are metaphors. They are useful to some extent, but you might want to keep in mind that if in the future, in your future classes, you have to talk about metaphors in relation to the United States schools, you might want to stay away from the melting pot metaphor. People really do not like it, and I personally think also that it's not the right metaphor to explain the United States. Now, in this module, you have some readings from the spring textbook, and you're going to find some interesting information. You're going to find how different cultures intersected in the history, and you're going to be introduced to some concepts like dominant and dominated cultures. Some supplemental readings are really interesting. One of the readings is by Southern Education Foundation, and this is really just kind of like a statistical reading, and it gives you an idea about the changing nature of the population in the southern part of the United States, how students of color are becoming majority in a lot of the schools. Another reading you have is by Tyler and a whole lot of other authors, called Cultural Discontinuity, and this article is going to give you a really good sense of cultural differences in a classroom, in the school, how cultural differences affect students. This is one of the most useful articles I have read in my career on multiculturalism and school issues. So I want you to pay special attention to this article. Now, one of the articles and one of the concepts that we are going to discuss is on white privilege. White privilege, that is a very interesting concept, and that's a very loaded type of concept, because if not understood correctly, it can imply guilt, and I don't think that's the That's the purpose of the concept. It has been around for a while, and the reading you have on white privilege is by Peggy McIntosh, and she wrote this in 1989, I believe. She simply wrote a reflective paper, and a lot of people talked about that paper for a long time, and people still talk about it. And the concept of white privilege has been around since then. And again, the goal of the concept is not to induce or suggest guilt on white people. It is to explain how skin color makes an impact on what people get and cannot get. This is not to say that white people get things that they don't deserve just because they're white. That's not the idea. It kind of illustrates that if you're not white, sometimes you may not get the things that you deserve. So that's the privilege part. So what's happening with the white people is what's supposed to happen. If you deserve something, you get it. That's the privilege. It should not be a privilege. It's the correct thing to happen. But with people of color or students of color, that may not happen. And to illustrate that point really well, I have an article called Are Emily and Greg More Employable Than Lakeisha and Jamal? This is not an article written by educators. This was an article written in the world of economics. It's really interesting. I'm not going to give you a lot of details because I want you to read the article, but it's really interesting how people with the same exact qualifications, with the same exact CV or resume applying for the same jobs or similar jobs, get different reactions based upon their names. As you can see from the title of the article, the names were chosen purposefully because Emily and Greg are very white sounding names, and Lakeisha and Jamal are black sounding names, and based upon the names, these people received different responses to their inquiries about jobs. So read that article. You will really enjoy it, and it will give you a good perspective. Now, going back to America being a diverse society, when cultures intersect, when cultures come together, there are some things that you cannot easily avoid. And one of those things is that a perspective of ethnocentrism comes to play. And ethnocentrism simply suggests people look at themselves culturally and look at other people culturally and kind of automatically see their culture as being superior to others. And this is something, anybody can fall into this trap, and a lot of people do. And even if you're a very culturally aware person or a very culturally sensitive person, you may fall into this trap very easily, because when people compare cultures, yeah, they tend to like their culture. Why not? That just makes sense. But the unfortunate outcome of this type of thinking is things like discrimination, things like stereotyping, and when ethnocentrism gets to a level of discrimination and stereotyping, then it becomes problematic, especially if it becomes discrimination and stereotyping at the workplace. It becomes really problematic. If a teacher with an ethnocentric view has lower expectations on, let's say, African American students, then it's a work level or institutional discrimination that cannot be acceptable by any means. If it's at the personal level, you cannot hurt a lot of people, but if it's at the institutional or professional level, you can actually hurt a lot of people. So ethnocentrism is something to be reflected upon a lot, because the better thing would be to look at cultures and not simply say mine is better than yours. It's just simply acknowledge we are different. There are differences, and be okay with the differences. Anyways, as I said, the spring textbook is going to give you some good perspective on this. And let's see, you don't have a formal written assignment due this week. And of course there's a reason for it. We, as I said in the introduction, start here introduction video, we try to keep the workload as manageable as possible. So we kind of kept this week clean, let's say, for you guys, so that you can start working on your immigrant interview. And again, immigrant interview is the biggest assignment in class. So please start working on your immigrant interview. This week would be a good week, because other than weekly activities, you know, the discussions and such, you don't have anything due by the end of this module. So this is a good week to identify someone for your immigrant interview, make your initial contact, make arrangements for you and your potential interviewee to sit down and talk about you know, the assignment and the questions you're going to ask. And as you select someone, just a couple things, you need to find someone who is information rich, who can provide you a lot of information. If you choose someone who is very young, even if this person is a recent immigrant, a very young person, an elementary child, for example, excuse me, an elementary child, for example, may not be able to give you a lot of information, because as part of this interview you're going to talk to people about their lives in their home countries, what made them move to the United States, what were the conditions of the moving, if you know, if they had to get visas, were they able to get visas easily, you know, how they came here on a plane, on a bus, did they have to walk, what happened on their first day, were they received well, how they adapted to the United States, did they get help from people of their own background, did they get help from Americans. You're going to talk about their language experiences here, if you can find someone you know, who spoke little to no English when they came to the United States, you know, that would give you a lot of information. So this is a good week to start working on your immigrant interview, because it's due next week. It may look like a lot of time, but you know, this is a major assignment. You have to do the interview, you have to write up the interview, you have to integrate things from your course readings, you have to go through your own interpretation of your of the interview. So it will take 2 weeks, and make sure that you start working on it now. Let's see, I think this is all I want to say for this module. This is a module that requires a lot of reflection as you read the things, as you you know, as you learn new things from the readings. Please reflect upon them and reflect upon your own views on these issues, you know, different groups in the United States and how they intersect, how they interact. The following module, Module 3, will be about the immigrants in the United States, and we will come back to some of the things that we talked about here. Just as a general reminder, on the discussion forums, remember, we would like you to respond to the main prompt by Thursday, and then between Thursday and Sunday interact with your classmates on the discussion forums. And if you have questions, Ask the Instructor forum is always open, so you can post your question and we will answer it as quickly as we can. If you post something on the weekend, we may not respond to it, because you know, we have kids and stuff, so our ability is limited on the weekends. But on the weekdays, you will get a response very fast. So I hope you enjoyed this module. I hope the course is going well, and I will be talking to you guys soon when I make the video for Module 3. So for now, goodbye and take care.